Steven Seagal's golden era began with a rapid rise in the action film industry, establishing him as a unique presence through martial arts expertise and on-screen charisma that distinguished him from many of his contemporaries. His debut film, Above the Law, though not a blockbuster in the traditional sense, successfully carved out a niche in the fiercely competitive 1980s market, earning approximately $19 on a modest $7 million budget, a notable profit for Seagal's then relatively low profile as an actor. Critics, including the esteemed Roger Ebert, offered praise for the film's gritty realism, nuanced storytelling, and particularly its meticulously precise fight choreography, which collectively elevated it above many of its contemporaries that often relied more heavily on spectacle than substance. Seagal, who had previously been known primarily as a martial arts instructor with a reputation for his expertise in Aikido, made a surprisingly smooth and effective transition to a leading man, garnering critical approval that would serve as a robust launchpad for his burgeoning career in Hollywood. His stoic yet compelling screen presence, combined with authentic martial arts moves executed with a calm intensity, provided a refreshing alternative to the bombastic and often over-the-top action heroes of the time. Concurrently, Warner Brothers was strategically positioning another martial arts talent with the release of Bloodsport, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, whose ballet-influenced martial arts style and dynamic physicality brought a fresh and exciting energy to the genre, complementing Seagal's more grounded approach. Despite operating on a smaller budget compared to many mainstream action films, Bloodsport managed to outperform Above the Law at the box office, significantly boosting Van Damme's status as a rising star and further elevating the popularity of martial arts cinema. Warner Brothers' dual launch of these two relatively unknown but immensely talented martial artists introduced a new wave of action stars who revitalized martial arts films by emphasizing authentic fighting techniques, charismatic leads, and intricate choreography that demanded a higher level of skill, discipline, and dedication. This shift contributed to moving Hollywood's focus away from relying solely on star power, expensive special effects, and formulaic storytelling toward a renewed appreciation for genuine talent, compelling narratives, and well-crafted action sequences. As a result, Seagal and Van Damme helped to reshape the action genre's future trajectory, inspiring countless filmmakers, choreographers, and actors to explore more nuanced and skill-driven approaches to martial arts cinema, ultimately broadening the appeal and artistic potential of action films worldwide. Their influence can be seen in the evolution of action choreography and the rise of more authentic martial arts narratives that continue to resonate with audiences today, maintaining a legacy that underscores the importance of technical prowess and charismatic presence in the genre's ongoing development. After achieving early success, Steven made the significant decision to quit his Aikido club in order to fully dedicate himself to his burgeoning acting career, recognizing that the demands of both pursuits were too great to balance effectively. With a strategic approach to his projects, he carefully selected his second film, Hard to Kill, a gritty action thriller where his character dramatically wakes from a 7-year coma with a singular purpose: to seek vengeance against those who wronged him. This film resonated strongly with audiences, grossing approximately $50 against a modest $12 million budget. An impressive figure that, when adjusted for inflation, is roughly equivalent to nearly $100 million in today's terms. This commercial success positioned Steven as a formidable box office draw, placing him in the same league as contemporary action stars such as Keanu Reeves. Building on this momentum, he followed up with 2 more films, Marked for Death and Out for Justice. Both films were financially successful, with Marked for Death capitalizing on the era's appetite for gritty crime dramas, while Out for Justice, despite its extreme and graphic violence, managed to perform well at the box office. The latter's brutal content, which included intense fight scenes and visceral depictions of physical trauma, likely limited its overall earnings due to stricter censorship and ratings constraints. Notably, Out for Justice was considered one of the most brutal action films of 1990, even after the filmmakers were compelled to censor several particularly graphic scenes, such as those involving broken necks and shattered teeth, to comply with rating boards and avoid an X rating that would have severely restricted its audience. Steven's next major project was Under Siege, a film that would become his biggest hit to date and mark the beginning of what critics and fans later dubbed the silver era of his career, characterized by a string of successful high-profile action movies. Warner Brothers recognized the potential of the project and purchased J.F. Lawton's original script for a substantial $1 million. Though the initial version was heavier on costly, elaborate action sequences that had to be scaled back significantly to fit the production budget. Steven accepted a record-breaking $5 million paycheck for the role, a testament to his rising star power, but had to make a personal sacrifice by cutting off his iconic ponytail, adhering to the strict appearance standards imposed by the Navy setting of the film. Under the direction of Andrew Davis, who had previously expressed admiration for Steven's martial arts prowess, the production benefited from Davis' practical approach. Interestingly, Davis later revealed that he only agreed to direct the film because Steven would only appear on screen for about half of the movie's runtime, which allowed Davis to maintain a balanced production without Steven completely dominating the creative process. This collaboration proved fruitful, cementing Steven's status as a major action star and setting the stage for the next phase of his cinematic journey. While Davis remained on board, Pamela Anderson did not. He was nearly cast in the lead female role, but Steven Seagal ruined that opportunity. According to Anderson, she was told there were hundreds of other women vying for the part, and if she wanted it, she'd have to allow the film's big star to get handsy. Anderson refused and walked away. The role then went to Erika Eleniak, Anderson's co-star from Baywatch. Unlike Anderson, Eleniak later claimed that Seagal behaved like a perfect gentleman. However, Gary Busey strongly disagreed with that account, asserting that he personally witnessed Seagal trying to corner Eleniak multiple times and had even intervened to stop the situation. So, there are two possibilities here. Either Eleniak has a very unusual definition of gentleman, or Anderson and Busey were telling the truth. Both had reasons to dislike Seagal, Anderson because she lost a role to him, and Busey's story becomes more intriguing later on. Filming took only 2.5 months, after which the studio held a test screening. Audiences loved the movie but hated the original title, Dreadnought, as no one understood what it had to do with a film about Seagal fighting bad guys. Consequently, the title was changed to Under Siege. At that time, it became the most expensive film ever produced without a press screening because the studio believed critics were biased against action movies and would give negative reviews. Ironically, there was no need to worry, as Under Siege became one of Seagal's best-reviewed films and his biggest box office hit, grossing $157 million worldwide on a $35 million budget. The film's word-of-mouth success was so strong that it impacted Die Hard 3. Originally, Bruce Willis' character was supposed to rescue hostages on a ship, but because it was too similar to Under Siege, the script had to be completely rewritten. Achieving 5 successful films in a row is a rare feat, and perhaps this streak of ease eventually backfired on Seagal, who by this point had developed a massive ego and a full-blown prima donna complex. When these traits mix with a difficult personality, the result is rarely pleasant. After Under Siege's success, Hollywood's favorite action star suddenly decided he was also a talented director. 2 major studios fueled this delusion: 20th Century Fox and Warner Brothers. Fox offered Seagal the director's chair and the lead role in Man of Honor with a $30 budget. Warner Brothers, however, made an even better offer. Pick any script you want, get even more money, but sign on for the inevitable Under Siege sequel. The sequel was greenlit immediately after the first film became a hit. Seagal knew he had Warner executives under his control and negotiated his directorial debut's budget up to $40 million, choosing the script on deadly ground. He then declined Fox's offer and got to work. It soon became clear that being talented in one area does not guarantee talent in all areas. The production was a disaster, with Seagal constantly rewriting scenes in a script he had personally selected, reshooting entire sequences, and even getting into fights with stuntmen. All this caused the budget to balloon to $50 million. When On Deadly Ground was shown to test audiences, viewers literally fell asleep. The original ending was a Lord of the Rings director's cut style, where the action was over but the heroes continued drinking and chatting for a long time. In Seagal's version, nature itself was the hero. Deer and rabbits ran around, dolphins leapt, and all living creatures rejoiced because Seagal had saved them once again, while humanity was ungrateful. The film grossed only $39 million and earned Seagal his first ever Golden Raspberry nominations in 1995. Not just one, but three. Worst Actor, Worst Director, and Worst Picture. He actually won the Worst Director award. After witnessing the disastrous performance of the film, Warner Studios decided to pull it from international release to minimize further losses. This failure marked a critical turning point in Steven Seagal's career, though there was still a lifeline. Warner Brothers, having already invested $50 million to cast Seagal as a talented director in the film, remained willing to move forward with Under Siege 2. At this juncture, anyone with common sense would have taken this as a sign to regroup and deliver a solid sequel. However, Seagal was already on a different path. He didn't even bother getting into shape for the role. By the mid-1990s, his noticeable weight gain was clear. Yet instead of adopting a diet or training regimen, he simply wore a corset to appear slimmer. Furthermore, Seagal had no intention of stepping back from controlling the filmmaking process. Director Geoff Murphy later recalled that throughout the shoot, Seagal continuously offered highly important advice on how to direct the movie, much to the frustration of the crew. Rumor has it that acclaimed actors like Gary Oldman, Lawrence Fishburne, and Jeff Goldblum turned down the villain role specifically to avoid dealing with Seagal's so-called expert insights. Originally, the sequel was intended to bring back Gary Busey as one of the villains, despite his character's apparent death in the first film. One producer signed Busey for the sequel on a pay-or-play basis, meaning Busey would be paid regardless of whether he appeared, without Seagal's approval. When Seagal returned from vacation to discover this, he promptly removed both Busey and the producer from the project, reportedly compensating Busey $750,000 out of his own pocket. Given this, it's no surprise that Busey later spoke negatively about Seagal in interviews. Even without Busey, Seagal managed to cause further complications. Fresh allegations surfaced that female roles were only given to actresses who agreed to personal encounters with him. Environmental groups also protested when Seagal decided that a group of rocks in one scene looked unconvincing and had them repainted in a shade he deemed more rock-appropriate. This act was condemned as an unforgivable offense against nature, forcing Warner Studios to settle discreetly with environmentalists. Interestingly, Under Siege 2 wasn't originally conceived as a sequel at all. The script, titled Dark Territory, was written by a then-unknown Matt Reeves, now known as the director of The Batman. In the 1990s, Warner simply purchased Reeves' script, rebranded it as Under Siege 2, and adjusted the story to accommodate an unstoppable action hero. The original Under Siege had a $30 million budget, but the sequel's budget was doubled to $60. Much of this budget went toward building full-sized, functional train cars from scratch for the film. Post-production was fraught with tension as well. The director and editing team pleaded with Warner Brothers to intervene because Seagal refused to leave the editing room and insisted on controlling the final cut to match his vision. Consequently, the version released in theaters was Seagal's own. The movie premiered in 1995 but was immediately overshadowed by Apollo 13, grossing only $105 million worldwide. Given its $60 budget, the film barely broke even. At this stage, a major action star like Seagal might have still revived his career with the project executive decision. But the situation deteriorated so badly that he was ultimately cut out of his own movie. In the mid-1990s, Warner Brothers made a strategic decision that fundamentally reshaped their film lineup and had a lasting impact on the careers of several key actors involved. The studio decided to trade the script for Executive Decision, an action thriller that was widely anticipated as a guaranteed box office hit, especially with Steven Seagal attached as the star, for the rights to Forrest Gump, a film project they initially viewed as risky and unconventional, given its dramatic and sentimental tone, which diverged from the high-octane action movies that were dominating the market at the time. This gamble would prove pivotal, as Forrest Gump went on to become a critical and commercial success, eventually earning multiple Academy Awards. Meanwhile, Seagal's career began to falter. After the disappointing box office performance and poor critical reception of his next two films, Warner Brothers lost confidence in his drawing power as a leading man. In an attempt to salvage executive decision and bolster its appeal, Warner brought in Kurt Russell as a co-lead, which created considerable tension on set, particularly when John Leguizamo, also part of the cast, was caught laughing at some of Seagal's overly dramatic lines, highlighting the strained atmosphere behind the scene. Compounding these issues were Seagal's off-screen scandals, including multiple Me Too allegations and claims of violent behavior, which severely damaged his reputation and made studios wary of associating with him. Reports indicated that Russell even threatened to quit the project if Seagal remained the lead actor, forcing the production team to undertake a significant script rewrite that drastically reduced Seagal's role in the film. Reluctantly, Seagal agreed to film his character's early death, which cut his screen time significantly and allowed Leguizamo's role to expand, shifting the dynamic of the movie. Furthermore, Seagal's name was removed from the credits and promotional materials to distance the studio from the controversies surrounding him. Warner Brothers continued to back two more Seagal films, The Glimmer Man and Fire Down Below, but both suffered from budget cuts, cast departures, and ongoing issues with Seagal's professionalism on set, resulting in disappointing box office performances and multiple Razzie nominations. After these setbacks, Warner Brothers put their collaboration with Seagal on hold until 2001's Exit Wounds, a film that achieved modest success but failed to provide the opportunity Seagal needed to reinvent his image and regain his status as a leading action star. Following the 2002 release of Half Past Dead, Seagal's film budgets shrank even further, and he increasingly shifted to straight-to-video releases, targeting niche audiences. His only notable, later theatrical role was a supporting part in the cult favorite Machete, alongside occasional appearances on reality television. More recently, Seagal stepped away from filmmaking altogether, relocating to Russia, where he took on a role as a special representative, focused on diplomacy and cultural exchange rather than entertainment. Despite early stardom and multiple chances to adapt to changing industry demands, Seagal's career was ultimately limited by a combination of ego, scandal, and resistance to change, factors that contrasted sharply with the trajectories of other martial arts stars, like Jean-Claude Van Damme, who managed to navigate similar challenges more successfully. This complex story of rise, fall, and adaptation is one we've explored in detail here. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.